ここね。表向きは浄水場として作られたんだけど、裏では日本軍がある実験に使ってたんだって。
ある実験？
人体実験。
人体実験？
一説によると死人を生き返らせてたとか。
それって。
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait You Haven't Seen. It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 285, and our movie this week is 2019's One Cut of the Dead. And here to talk with me about it, he had seen it and wanted me to watch it from The More You Nerd. It's Myles. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. The first little whiffs of fall are starting to kind of eke through the summer, and that's always my favorite time of year is fall. And obviously the kind of precursor to spooky season, which, I mean, if you're me, spooky season is eternal, but September, October is always a very special time of the year.
Same for me. I 100% back that up. So, all right, before we get too deep into this movie, I want to know, so you brought this one to me. I got a hold of you. I was like, hey, Myles, we got to have you back on the show. What do you got for me? And you said, dude, you got to watch One Cut of the Dead. So what's your history with One Cut of the Dead?
So I guess I'm going to start from my own reputation of being your go-to guy for like Japanese films now. This is my second consecutive Japanese film that I've brought to you.
Actually, third if you count Redline.
Oh, that's true.
You brought me Redline, so.
That's right. So I remember, I mean, as someone who's like a massive horror fan, typically like I'm someone who kind of knows when movies are being made or, are at least seeking some sort of international distribution and selling at, Cannes or whatever. And so anytime there's at least a few films per year that have this just grassroots buzz about it. And One Cut of the Dead just happened to be one of them. And I kept hearing about this kind of found footage style Japanese film. And every single person that I had read something from said, don't watch a trailer, don't read a synopsis, just go in blind and watch the movie and have a pure experience. And so when I finally was able to watch it, because I think initially it was put on Amazon, but it wasn't put up there by the filmmakers.
Okay.
And then Third Window partnered with Shudder to officially release it through their streaming service. And I think I had watched it on the Amazon bit when it first popped up there. When that happened, I think it was 2018, 2017. It was before it got like a full official release in the States. And I mean, this, I think I said this to you when I pitched it. I was like, this is a movie that I would pair in a double feature with Fish Story for a very, very specific reason that we'll get to later in the show.
Yes.
But as someone who is a big fan of Japanese cinema, Japanese horror, I'm wearing a Ju-on t-shirt right now. There's a threshold, like, so when you're first watching it, I already knew it was made with $25,000. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was a cheap movie. And I've watched plenty of cheap. I mean, the original Grudge movies were made for TV movies. I think the first Ring movie was technically a made for TV movie. Not Ring as we know it, but there was a made for TV release. So I've certainly seen the cheapest of the cheap. And this is a movie that kind of constantly has you, what's going on? For at least the first 35, 40 minutes of it.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time period, I'm trying not to spoil anything, you're kind of questioning, okay, maybe this is overhyped. Maybe, I mean, yeah, it's cheap. It's kind of fun, but I don't know. And then something happens and the movie actually begins. And it's such a wonderful bait and switch because it's not one of those, we tricked you. It's, okay, we wanted you to come through this journey so that you can appreciate it through this route. And it is such a love letter to independent cinema, to horror, to the act of filmmaking in general.
Yes.
That like it's one of those movies that you walk away from feeling good. And like Fish Story, it's one that I always want to show people because like not only are you going to like this movie, you're going to feel better after it. And in these times, boy howdy, those movies are like priceless.
Yeah. So you mentioned this movie to me. I had heard the title before, I think from you, but also it probably popped up on a list somewhere.
It's been in the ether for sure.
Yeah. And so, but all I knew about it was a Japanese horror comedy was what it was being told as. And I maybe had read the one sentence blurb of like a low budget horror film, zombie movie suddenly gets invaded by actual zombies. That's all I knew going into it. If that's all you know about this movie, while this is a terrible move as far as the podcast goes, stop listening, go find it, watch the movie, then come back and listen to us because we are going to spoil a whole lot about this very soon. And there's no way to talk about it without that. If you don't care about that, that's fine. But to have the purest experience of this movie, I do recommend see it first, then listen to us talk about it because you're going to really appreciate what we have to say. And I love the idea of double featuring this with Fish Story because my message to you as I was watching this for the first time, I wasn't done with it yet, by the way. I was probably three-quarters of the way into it.
I could tell where you were when you messaged me, and I was like, he just got to the part.
So, and my message to you was, this movie went from good to great to Fish Story. You beautiful son of a bitch. Like it was, It was just that moment, and I love that. So it is exactly what that first sentence tells you. It is a movie. These people are making a zombie movie when it gets invaded by zombies. It is that. But there's more. And my notes, reading back over them after I watched it, my notes were very similar to your kind of experience the first time going through this, which is a lot of questioning and a lot of like, is this really like, I kept waiting for the comedy part of it to kick in. Because that was the one thing I'd heard was zombie comedy. And I'm like, where is that coming? I was impressed by what they were doing, especially as I figured out that it was the way this whole opening was framed. But I just kept waiting for like the next gear to kick in, the thing to make me like really fall in love with this movie. And then, and here's our end of moratorium on spoilers. We're now going to start spoiling things in the movie. We get to that shot, that crane up shot of the end of this opening 37 minutes, and credits start to roll. And I was like, what's going on here? And by this point, I was like, so the director character. So as the movie opens up, it's on a scene, and then we get that it's a movie being made, right? So we're in that kind of a movie. And I thought that was really clever to start off with. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. So we're getting they're making a movie.
Yeah.
And it is super low budget, and there's cheese going on, and there's like questionable acting. And I had a lot of notes about how terrible the director was just as a character. I'm like, this guy's awful. He's yelling at people. He's snapped. He's just completely lost it. All this kind of stuff is going on.
This movie's so great because everything that you kind of criticize it for, like the movie comes back at you and is like, here's why. And this is why we showed you what we showed you.
Oh, and like, I'm wondering what's with this. Like, why is the sound guy just sitting there, not doing anything and just trying to walk away? The cameraman, at one point, the director spikes the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and tells the cameraman not to stop shooting. And I was like, oh, okay. So now this camera is, and that's, then I had that moment of like, my brain kind of clicking in like, okay, it's this movie now. Cool. All right. And it was partway through it, I realized, oh, this is all being framed as a single take. That's really cool. I really liked how that was going on. And then I learned after watching it, oh, they did it in a single take. They shot, because the whole movie was shot over 8 days. And that opening 37 minutes took them 2 days to film, 6, I think, takes in total. But they did one 37-minute take, which is just, for what's going on in that, is mind-blowing.
It's insane. I mean, and hence the title, One Cut of the Dead. but then you get, so yeah, you have the same experience that I had, that everyone else has, where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm along for the ride. Okay, cool. This is one take. Haha, the guy just like, wiped the lens because it got some blood sprayed on it.
Yep.
That's fine. Okay, cool. Super low budget. I had heard this is maybe $25,000 or the Japanese equivalent of. I'm down with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the credits start to roll, and you're like, huh? But this movie's 90 something minutes. This can't be it. And then the camera starts to pan out of a screen.
Yeah.
And
it's so good.
Oh, it's so good.
And we jump back to a month before, and
yes.
and now we get part 2, and there's the 3 acts in this are great because act 1 is the movie that they're making. They're making a movie, and in that movie, it's a zombie movie, zombie breakout, all this kind of stuff. We got our credits. Now we find out, okay, yes, it was a movie they were making, and we get the whole. And this is the part I would say of the 3 acts is the least action packed, in terms of like it doesn't have the zombie horror and it doesn't have quite the laughs of Act 3, but you need this part of this movie because this gives you all of your character base.
Yes, this is the meat of the sandwich.
And yeah, the emotional anchor to everything. Because we find out
exactly
playing the director in this is the director of the film. And I loved that, like, he described himself as being, what was it? It was fast, cheap, and average.
Right.
He was a director, but he wasn't like, he just sort of was a yes man. He was a studio guy. He was like a company man almost. One of those directors for hire.
I mean, he's absolutely like you said, a studio guy. He is someone. Oh, hey, you can shoot this fast and cheap, like one of Corman's people almost.
Yeah. Yes,
and so from the very pitch where we want you to do we're opening a new zombie channel. We want you to do one of the special features for the opening day, and it's going to be in one cut. And it's about a film crew making a zombie movie who get attacked by zombies. And he thinks they're joking. He's like, oh, that's okay. That's hilarious. What do you really want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell from the get-go, okay, he's being put upon. And it's wonderful because this takes us to his home life where he is married to a former actress and has a daughter who very much is very, very in love with film.
Yes. Yes, and she
violently so.
Yes, she wants that realism. She wants that. She's all about the art, like because we see the daughter on a shoot yelling at a little girl that she doesn't need eye drops to cry because she should be able to find the emotion and like all this stuff, which was interesting enough for her own character. But then when you learn more about the mom later, it even makes more sense where that came from.
Yes.
Which was something I wasn't ready for, which was great. So the other thing about, all right, I'm going to apologize right now. I'm going to butcher a whole lot of names. I do not pronounce Japanese names well. I'm going to try, but they're probably going to get butchered a little bit, and I apologize in advance. But I think it's Higurashi. And he's the director. He's he doesn't have the ability to say no. And his daughter even tells him that at one point, like, you got to learn how to say no. Because somebody, the producer tells him something. He says, yes. All right, I can do that. Yes. And that's part of that fast, cheap, average. That's the average part of it. He doesn't stand up for what he wants to do or what he feels like should be part of a project. The art part of it, where his daughter is the opposite of that. She's yelling at people. She would yell at everybody. She wouldn't care.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, to bring it back to Fish Story, remember the kind of affable drummer the director reminds me a lot of him. Like he's along for the ride. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and
the other guys who are like gung ho about their art, that's the daughter.
Yeah,
and the wife, to be honest. Because we like to me, like my favorite part is the second act, just because, like you said, all of the emotional resonance that happens at the end of this movie that you feel comes from this, because we get everything we need to about this family, about honestly just about filmmaking, because this is a good inside baseball about how some of the TV studios work in Japan. But I mean, you can easily translate that to here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of our TV studios aren't as much like this. I mean, you probably have some of your reality stuff that might be, but this is, from what I've read, is not something crazy out of the question.
Well, because it's that whole idea. Like the producers came to him and are like, "We have this. We want you to do it. You're going to do a one take zombie thing. It's going to be a half an hour long, and make that happen." And so he's got to come up with and get he's got the concept. Now he's got to write it. He's got to get everybody. He's got a month to get it all together. So we get to meet the cast members. He cast the guy that was our male lead in the opening part. In part because he's like this pop idol or not pop idol. He's an actor.
He's a very, very popular heartthrob.
Yeah. He's a popular heartthrob.
His daughter is a huge fan of him.
And so when he realizes that, he casts the guy just probably solely so that he'll get in good with his daughter, right? He wants to impress her. We've got the main girl in the movie is like a pop idol. And you've got the veteran actor that he brings in that we saw him working with on one of his commercial shoots. Is coming in. We meet like all these other actors, and it's just this emotional, the emotions and like the character basis for all that. You got the germaphobe guy who's like, I can't drink tap water because it gives me diarrhea. He's got to have his own special water. That's going to become important later.
Soft water.
Yeah, soft water. You've got like the heartthrob guy. At this point, I didn't like him at all. Like in this middle section, he was terrible because he was such a jerk.
He's awful
because
he is an absolute jerk. He's also like, he's asking questions but being confrontational about it because on one end you're like, yeah, you want there to be some thought process into what's going on in the movie, but he's walking all over the director, and then you have the main actress who is kind of beholden to her management company. She's like, I want to do all these things, but my management won't let me.
Yeah.
Which is something that actually happens in how people are managed in Japan. So they have a thing where like, oh yeah, you can't have, she can't be vomited on. She can't be covered in blood. All of those things happen in this movie, which is what makes everything that happens in the movie so much more fun. But it sets up how difficult this shoot is already going to be. Yeah. It's a comedy of errors because the old veteran that he hires is an alcoholic and a real bad alcoholic, and claims that he's not going to drink for this shoot because he wants to prepare himself to meet his daughter.
Yep.
You have some other actors who are fine, but you just you get a weird feeling about them, and then it pays off that, oh, they were having an affair and then got in a car wreck coming to the scene, and they couldn't make the shoot because one of the things about this was not only that it's a one-shot thing, it's going to be live.
Yeah. Yep. One take live to broadcast, which
it's insane.
Is insane. Absolutely.
I think didn't what was that George Clooney was that there was some sort of TV broadcast that George Clooney was part of that they did live to broadcast. I want to say it was like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I can't remember now. I feel like I remember something
black
about
and white,
that.
I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but I do remember like it's not something that happens often for very good reason.
I mean, look, Saturday Night Live does this, but they don't have, it's not this level of intricacy to anything that they're really doing.
Not this kind of production, and they have nightmares.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're getting to meet all these different characters. We get like the young actor who looks up to the heartthrob, right, and really wants to work with him, and the guy's just brushing him off. The older actor, you have like the production crew.
Japanese McLovin.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. So all this stuff is going on. Meanwhile, at home, Higurashi is, he's worried about what's going on. His wife is trying to be helpful. The daughter wants mom to get back into acting bad because she knew her mom was an actor, but hasn't been for a long time. And we're kind of given the idea that like she gave that up because she was a mom, right? That's sort of the feel I was getting from it. Was like, well, I'm going to be a mom, so I'm not going to act anymore. and dad's gonna, take care of things as a director, and all this. So there's that going on. The thing here is that we know that she ends up acting in the movie because we saw her in the first act. So when you're getting all this kind of going on, and like things are starting to unravel a little bit, and he's worried about doing it, but he's like, we're going to do this. And also Higarashi's dealing with, like, he wants to get in the good graces of his daughter, and he kind of is missing that as well. There's that great scene where he's looking over the old pictures after he has that sit down with what's his name, the Hosoda, the veteran actor, where Hosoda is like, I'm not going to drink anymore until we're done filming, and all that. And then we cut right to Higurashi at home having a kind of a breakdown, looking at pictures of him and his daughter. So there's that going on. And then we get to Act 3, and we get to the filming of the movie. And this is where it gets even more meta, because now we're filming the movie where they're filming a movie, which is already great. But this is where it kicked into that next level. This is where it went, much like watching Fish Story for me was, wow, this is kind of cool, to, ooh, this is getting really good, to, my God, how brilliant is this?
Right.
This movie did the same thing. Because that first 37 minutes is a fun, low budget, schlocky zombie movie. It's got all your tropes in it. It was very clever, and I was like, okay, all right, this is pretty good. We get this second act here, and it starts getting real good, because now we're getting all of this backstory. We're getting all of this more interesting stuff to deal with leading up to making this thing. Then we decided we're going hard now, because when they start filming this thing, that's when you get the actors that got in the car wreck and they couldn't make it. So now, and he brought his wife and his daughter to the set. So I love that, because his daughter, Mao, is just obsessed with that guy. And to the point where, like, when her dad is talking to him, she's way off away. And she's like, Dad, move, like, get out of the way. And she, like, moves to a different part of the building to get a better look at him.
That's the sequence where the producer's like, oh, you guys came to watch him work, huh? And it's great, because all this stuff happens. He finds out that he's going to have to be the director, but it happens all in this, like, little ready room. And he has a second breakdown where he kind of snaps at the producer and is like, no, we can do this. I can do this. And then casts his wife, and they ask, well, do you know the script? I only read it about 100 times. So, I mean, yeah, I probably know most of it. But
I did like
what's wonderful.
What's great, what is great about that part, I just have to say, because they're like, we need somebody to play this part. And Mao, like, volunteers her mom. It's like, she can do it. She was an actor. She can do it. And immediately Higurashi is like, hang on, we have to go have a conversation. No, you can't do this. No, we can't do this. And here again, to this point, we don't know why now. Now this is a whole different thing.
We think he's kind of holding her back for some reason. And we're like, dude, why are you doing this? Why are you holding her back when your whole arc is about being held back? And then we find out why.
And so he's like, no, you can't. And finally he's convinced, all right, we don't have a choice. Like, he doesn't have a choice. He's already got to act in it. Now she is as well. And I just love that. I love that whole exchange of like, no, you can't. And she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But Mao, not knowing any of the backstory, is like, no, you can do this. You're going to do this. And she's the one pushing everything forward, because she's the one that won't say no. So sorry, I cut you off, but
No, that's perfectly fine. It's from here that every little weird quirk that you notice in the first 37 minutes, like, is responded to. And it's so affirming, but it's also like, okay, it makes that first 37 minutes amazing, because now when you rewatch it, you're like, you know what's going on, but watching how, like, all the little awkward pregnant pauses that happen is because, something's going on. We have to, like, stall for time because we're live on television.
Yes.
Which is, I think, what you were playing at the top of the show is the, her giving the kind of story.
Yeah, the backstory to what was going on, because so they start filming. They do one scene. They have the big blow up scene that we saw at the beginning, where he's got to act as the put upon director, and this is Higurashi really like losing it and going off script a little bit.
He improvises the entire thing and actually rails into the main actress to actually like do her stuff and not worry about her management. And then he slaps the heartthrob, and he's like, "And you've been talking back since rehearsal." It's so good.
It's so good because it's just so cathartic for that character to be able to just let all this out and storm away. And then we find out that Hosoda has gotten into the sake that showed up as like a congratulatory thing. He found that, so he is hammered, and they're like, "All right, we got to figure this out." They find him passed out, so they're getting him all make-upped up to be a zombie self. And I loved it because this was the first of the that weird thing that happened. This is why it happened, and it's so brilliant. And it was them running into the door, that loud bang that we heard in the beginning that freaked out the actors, wasn't just like part of the script. It was Higurashi's got him. He's like carrying the guy Weekend at Bernie's style, and they tripped and fell into the door. And that made me laugh. And then he's having to prop him up and like move him around, which was really funny. There is, it's a zombie movie, it's a horror movie, so there's going to be blood and fluids. But if you're somebody who doesn't like vomit, the guy who's drunk does spew a couple times, and even that is done really funny because in the table read, that was the big thing that the Teen Idol girl, her management company didn't want her getting puked on, and and even the younger actor, the guy, he's the one that gets it, and he is so thrown off by it, and it's just man, everything from that.
I mean, just it's so funny because I'm sorry.
No, it's so good.
One of those movies that when I start thinking about it more and more, it just
gets better.
But Higurashi, like he's Weekend at Bernie's this guy. Like he is trying his best to like kind of puppet him around so that he hits his mark so the camera can get him on screen. And now we know why he was acting so erratic, is because this guy is like, off his gourd because he drank like super fine sake. And which, hey, been there. But
yes.
It's so funny. And we also get, I think what's so funny for me is finding out that, because they talk about this in the control room because the daughter is like becoming the producer. She's barking orders. She's telling people to do their job. Also doesn't refer by anyone by name. It's woman and man. Like she just barks genders at people. And someone says, "Oh yeah, this is why she stopped acting, is because she didn't just like, here's method, and then beyond method is where she would go. She would actually become the characters, and it became unhinged."
Yeah.
So we see that happening.
She method acts to the point where Daniel Day-Lewis would be like, "Would you relax a little bit? The camera's not rolling. It's fine."
Because she becomes a character in a zombie apocalypse and is actively trying to, like, she thinks that the actress got bit and tries to kill her.
It's everything from when they find him drunk forward, just had me just dying laughing. There were so many moments that were killing me, whether it was the Weekend at Bernie stuff, whether it was like hitting the marks. The
improv was so great. Boom!
Like when we see that in the initial part of the movie, it's that weird, awkward scene, and then we find out it's because they've got to just find something to talk about and fill time.
Right.
And that's the only hobby she had, was learning. She's learning self-defense, but she's learned like 2 movements of self-defense. That's it, because she has a problem of like committing to things. She gets bored with stuff really quickly.
Right.
Which was so good. And so, boom, Like, I'm just going to do that now. And there's a point later in the 37-minute movie where she's doing that over and over. And the payoff for that might be one of my favorite things in a movie, period, that I've seen this year. I want to save that for just a minute, though, because there's so much more going on, because we didn't touch on, while they're doing that whole month lead up, there's not just the actors, we're also getting crew members. And one of them is the cameraman and his assistant. Mm-hmm. And the cameraman with the bad back and is doing with this one camera handheld is wrecking his back. Meanwhile, you've got his young assistant who she wants to get involved, and she's got ideas, and he's just dismissing her. Right.
I love the very first time she was like, oh, we should do a zoom in and zoom out and this super stylized thing. And she just completely gets thrown off as soon as she gets a camera.
The first thing,
because when you see, there's a moment in the first 37 minutes where the camera drops, which happens a lot in the found footage style movies. So it's not a complete surprise, but it's on the ground for way longer than it should be. Mm-hmm. And then it picks up and starts, you can tell there's a different style. And then we get the reason, and all of a sudden...
What's brilliant about that is, in the moment when you're first watching the movie, you don't consciously notice the change in style. Like, you're not, I wasn't watching it thinking about it. Yeah. I wasn't watching it like, oh wow, the camera work is different. Going back and thinking about it as you're watching that third act, you're like, oh yeah, it totally changed at that point. And from then on, it was this even more chaotic, hyper stylized thing going on. And it's brilliant. It's so good. Because that was that was her thing. She was going to do that. So the second she had the opportunity, man, she jumped all over it to the point where
first thing she does.
Yeah, it's the first thing she does. And even the people in the control room are like, well, this is real cheesy all of a sudden, because they don't really know what's going on.
Cheesy is good.
But cheesy's great.
Is what Myles says.
It was, I loved that so much. Like the way the zombies are acting, it's that really bad but amazing low budget horror movie acting. It's just it kept getting better and better. And that's when then mom now has her like breakdown, and she snaps and becomes her character, and she's just kicking people and throwing them all over the place. And you got Higarashi's like pops out of that one door. And I love that, because basically all his character does is pop out of places and just yell action and like want the movie to keep going. And when she's chasing, the girl, and he pops out of the last door and yells action, and she's running up the stairs and turns around, and his wife just hauls off and kicks him right in the junk and pushes him out of the way. And like the assistant comes up to him, he's like, "Stop her! Just go stop her before she does something worse." It was so good.
I love that sequence, because in the first act, you see her like take out some zombies, and like, oh cool, like she's kind of doing an action thing. That's pretty neat. And then with the knowledge that everyone's actually trying to stop her, and she is just like steamrolling them. That scene is so freaking funny. And
the payoff of it, because when they get up on the top of the roof, and that's when our heartthrob shows up, and he tries to stop her. And we get the pan away from the action, right? And it's again, it felt in that first 37 minutes of that kind of low budget horror movie where it's just uncomfortably long take or long shot on the girl screaming the whole time. And pausing and then screaming again. And there's action going on, and we're hearing the action. That's what we're hearing, palm over and over, and all this struggle. And then when the camera pans back over, Niall's got an axe in her head. And my initial note was like, I wasn't expecting that. I figured she would make it to the end of the movie. Like, she seemed like she was going to be more into things. And then seeing the behind the scenes part of it, where it's everybody on the crew is trying to stop her, and she's just doing that same self-defense move and knocking them all off of there.
And she still pops up in camera with an axe in her head,
which
they
again,
have to take her back down.
Yes, it was so good. But the thing, I cackled when Higurashi gets her in a sleeper hold and has to literally choke her out to get her to stop. It was so perfect, because before all we could just hear struggling going on, and then to see that, and he's just got her in a sleeper hold and like sets her down, and then they've got to sit there and put fake blood all over her and find the fake axe that can go into her head, and like they're struggling with all this, and he's telling the camera person and like trying to direct at the same time, and it's just chaos. It was so good. That was the moment. That for me in this movie was the ramen bar scene in Fish Story. It was that scene for me. And that scene in Fish Story is when I tell people why I love Fish Story so much, it's because of that scene after they've recorded their song where they're sitting in the ramen bar talking about it, because it's the most punk rock thing I've ever seen, where they're just like, nobody's going to listen to our music anyway. Who cares? Just leave the blankness in there. Like, it's fine. And it's such that was the moment that whole movie, when they learned that about the meaning behind what they were using for the song and all of that, that was where it all clicked into place. That was that particular moment in this movie here, where they are struggling with now trying to stop her. Chaos is going all over the place. Nobody knows what's going on. The producers are watching this you've got the control room people watching it as Mao is like, this is great. This is all working out. But you've got the executive producers, no clue at all. And they just think this is all part of exactly how it's supposed to be. That lady killed me.
Yeah. Oh, which apparently there's a French remake, and the woman who plays the executive in that too.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious to see the French remake.
I am, and I'm not. I hear it's fine. Because there's technically like 2 follow-ups to this movie. There is the Hollywood edition, which kind of continues the story with the daughter doing a film, I believe, and then they did something during the pandemic as as a morale booster for people. They did some sort of kind of Zoom style thing, and
I didn't know that one.
And uploaded to YouTube to kind of like lift people's spirits and stuff. For me, one of the best moments, I mean, there's so many great ones, and the one that you mentioned is great. The human pyramid crane shot for me,
right,
is it's because this third act is such a, like I said at the beginning, at the top of the show, but it's such a love letter to the ingenuity of independent filmmaking. Because you always watch these independent films that are like, oh, this movie was made with like X amount of dollars, and they pulled off all this insane stuff that movies with 12 times the budget don't do. You see someone, your early James Gunn films, or even watching Josh Trank's Chronicle, where like they pull off stuff that the movie looks like $100 million and it's not. And I mean, you always kind of be like, man, the people that are hungry and just have the necessity to tell a story will find a way. Yeah. And that moment to me is so beautiful. I cry every time I watch it, to be honest.
You can even trace it all the way back to something like Evil Dead, which Evil Dead looks low budget, but they did so much with so little. And that to me is always
put a camera on a motorcycle and throwing it at Bruce Campbell.
Right, exactly. And that was the thing that pushed this movie over the top for me. Like, I had that moment, but it was this whole third act because it is a love letter to filmmaking. And that to me was great, because in the midst of everything going on, in now having her breakdown, there's a struggle and the crane gets knocked over. And that was the shot that was ending the movie. The crane's broken now and they've got to figure that out. And that was great because Myles was like, how many of you are free? And then it just cuts and we don't know what it is. And then we see them starting to build the human pyramid. And I love how Higurashi is watching this happen, and the scene is unfolding and he's having them pause. And there's those, again, that opening scene. There's so those weird pauses that just felt like people forgetting their lines or something cheap about it. And then when you find out what the reason is behind it, it's so much better, because he's like making them pause and like looking over and he sees the pyramid is falling apart, but now they're getting it back to, okay, go. Like, it was killing me. It was so good, but it was the tenacity of independent filmmaking. And it's really why like smaller films like that when there's such an earnestness behind them, I can really get into them. No matter how schlocky and how terrible they are, there's a love
Mhm.
of making the thing.
It's like watching Ed Wood, the
Yeah.
best Tim Burton movie.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where, like, if you've ever been in a play, if you've ever made an independent thing with your friends, you ever been in a band, or ever like, and not like a band for like a couple days, but like a band that actually tried something, record some music, whatever.
Mhm.
And everything around the thing that you create is absolute bedlam. I don't care what it is and what the end result ends up being. It's always crazy, whether it's a local record to American Idiot. There is always an insane story about how that thing got created.
Mhm.
And every play I was ever a part of since I was a kid through high school, there were times where, like, it was dress rehearsal and it was a nightmare. And I was like, there's no way that we're ready to go.
Right.
And somehow something happens. Some switch happens and everything works, no matter what's going on behind the stage and what's going on, behind the scenes. Everyone comes together to create something beautiful.
Yeah.
Even if it's a schlocky zombie movie. And that's what this movie is, because you could dislike most of the people that you were in a play with or in a band with, but you have a relationship with them that is unique and unlike any other relationship you will have with most people you encounter in your life. You guys created something together and you are bound by that. And whenever it's finished, you look upon it like, oh man, we did something.
They
like, I hated you the entire time, but now I'm gonna have a beer with you.
Yeah, they even kind of have that in this, where when Higurashi has his moment right early in the filming process, and then later on, the heartthrob gets in his face about it, like, you slapped me, nobody slaps me, all that, and now just like she's like, you ain't having it. She smacks the taste out of his mouth, and
that was so funny when she slaps him. I was dying.
Yeah, because she doesn't just slap him, she slapped him. She put him down. And he was like, after that was that it was almost like the not exactly the same, but it's that kind of like brothers fighting thing where, like, you fight for a second and then you realize and you come together stronger for it. He not only came through that and was like, all right, we're going to finish this project off, he's part of the human pyramid. Like, he's jumping into that, which the guy that was at the table read wasn't going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of those things, is like everyone who comes into a creative project leaves differently.
Yep.
You're never the same. And I love that this film does. I mean, I love movies about movies, but again, I like Ed Wood. I do love stuff like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and things like that. But the movies that are messy, about movies being messy, but the love of filmmaking is the theme.
Yep.
I think are the strongest one. This is why I would pair it with Fish Story, because I think it is a similar message about the importance of collaborative creativity. It's a very different film, but you walk away just feeling so good.
Yeah, you really do.
This is one of those movies that just really, like, kind of lifts your spirits.
Like, you finish watching this, it made me want to go get a bunch of friends together and do what we used to do and make
a movie.
We used to do this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
like, it made me want to do that. Fish Story made me want to make music. And it made me want to, like, work with a group of people again to do that collaborative thing, because it gave you that uplifting feeling. That's the thing that I take away from One Cut of the Dead so much, is like, it's that feeling of collaboration. You get, like, Higurashi and his daughter seeing eye to eye towards the end of it. He realizes the good part of, like, standing up for and not just being fast, cheap, and average, to actually putting himself into things more, right?
Right. And by doing so, he gets the moment that he had lost, because there's the scene where she's on top of his shoulders, very similar to the photograph that he was sobbing over in his breakdown. And even that's what snaps his wife out of the character. She sees that. Yeah. And she's, like, touched by it. And then you get this great crane shot. And I actually love the shots of the main actress because like they did some with her eyes too, because they are red.
Oh yeah.
And it's fantastic. And I'm like, now I want to see the follow-up. Like I want to see the follow-up to this story. Like where does this go? Because it was such a creepy pasta-esque story, which I love. But I think that's what works about this movie is it gives you this schlock, then it gives you the emotional like setup, and then it gives you why all of it matters, why all of it's beautiful, and it makes you want to live in that world again.
Yeah.
It makes you want to watch the 37 minutes on its own because you're like, oh, I love this. This is great.
Mm-hmm. And you appreciate it more. And the structure of this is very important. The way they did this, because most horror movies are going to build up to your bloodbath and your climax. And this movie starts off with it. And that's a genius way to do it. And the structure of this is so important because we see the end result, then we see building up to it, and then we see creating it. And all of a sudden, you're seeing that first 37 minutes in a completely different light because of everything that went into making that. And I say this a lot, like making movies is not an easy thing to do at any budget,
Right.
at any level. It's hard to do. And this shows you that at this level. And they made this for, again, $25,000 equivalent. And it went on to make a whole lot of money. It
made so much money.
Something like 25 million, I think, in box office. Yeah,
it's like 25 to 30 million. And I think what's great about this is this movie. It's a magic trick film, and that's why it's so important for some of you to have stop the podcast and go watch the movie. And I know people say that all the time, like, oh, stop the podcast. No. This is one of those movies where like the trick's not ruined. I've watched this movie several times. You still can put yourself in the mindset, but there's something special about witnessing a magic trick for the first time.
Yeah.
Before you see the man behind the curtain. And it's just, it's so wonderful because you go through these motions like, okay. And then you're like, okay, again. All right. But this is still kind of like it purposely makes you doubt the movie.
Yeah.
And when it catches you, it's so wonderful because the thing about this film that other films that have a twist or something, they always try to pull the rug from you and or wag its finger at you. This movie's not doing that. It's like no, and then I'm going to give you a quarter from under your ear.
Yeah.
It's not trying to like make you feel bad about being tricked. It's like no, I've got something special for you, and I appreciate that so much.
That's such a good way to put it because if you think of like when I think of twists in a movie. 3 movies come to mind for me. They're all kind of in the same era, ironically enough. But Fight Club, with its twist, The Sixth Sense with its twist, and The Usual Suspects. Right, those are kind of 3 of like the best executed twists in movies, or some of the best executed twists. But all 3 of them do it in a way of like, haha, gotcha. Like, oh, you thought you knew what was going on. Well, this is what's actually happening. And this one, it is such a like, it's not a gotcha moment. It's like, yeah, all that stuff that you saw. Well, this is how we got to that, and it's not the way that you would think, but it also is that again, it's that perseverance and that tenacity of like low budget independent filmmaking and just making shit work. And I loved all of that.
There's also something about being self-aware that there is a razor's edge you have to walk because it's very easy to get into smarmy territory or self-righteous territory with self-awareness, and that can sometimes be eye roll inducing. Even in movies I like where they're super self-aware, I'm like, okay, all right, Deadpool, calm down. And I'm not blasting Deadpool. I had a great time with those movies, but I just like that kind of thing where it's like, because people do like self-aware meta stuff, but where things are being so lazily meta that it's not. This is a movie that absolutely cares.
Yes,
that it's self-aware. It cares that you care about what it's discussing, and it's one of those movies that, no matter how many times I watch it, like all they left. I mean, again, I put Fish Story above this movie. Fish Story is one of my favorite movies of all time. Same international distributor, Third Window Films.
Okay.
So get a region free player and just buy all their movies. They put out a lot of good stuff. Although you don't need a region free player for Fish Story, it'll work in your regular Blu-ray player.
Awesome.
But movies like this that just come from such a place of what's the word I'm looking for?
They come from
unpretentious love.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a positive kind of just loving look at filmmaking and people.
There's a seedy side of it too, but this is not worried about that.
No, it's not, because that's not the story they want to tell. They want to tell the story of like this director who just goes through the motions, and he comes out of it a better person at the end. He gets that connection with his daughter again. All the actors that are a part of it, like when they finish the shot, the crane shot, the human pyramid shot, and the human pyramid collapses and they're all laying there and they're laughing, and you can tell like they're so proud of what they did, because they did something that shouldn't work. You should not be able to make a 37-minute long single take zombie thing go direct to broadcast. There is no world in which that works.
It is insane, especially at the movie they were doing. Like, should not work. And I mean, it technically doesn't. But
right, like, that's the thing. It doesn't.
But I want to touch on something that you were kind of alluding to. So this movie ends with, them kind of laughing. We don't know how this thing did. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how it did.
No, it does not.
What matters is the people that came out of it, the people who came back from the war. That's who matters.
Yeah.
But I love the movie doesn't say like, oh, this kicked off the zombie channel and did all this stuff. I mean, maybe one of the follow-ups does say something, but it truly doesn't matter, because the finishing the project was the magic moment. And it's a great equalizer, because like you were talking about, like the heartthrob who is such a stick in the mud at the first table read is like part of the crew now. Everyone's covered in blood or has been hurt, or we didn't even talk about the was it the sound guy, the AR guy, who ends up drinking the wrong water bottle, and in the entire time is like having to take a shit somewhere, but like also is getting thrown back into scenes and then exiting them, and then you hear him scream. And in the first 37 minutes, you think, okay, this guy ran out and got killed by a zombie. No, he's being stopped and he's got to go to the bathroom, and he's like, let me go.
Yep.
It's so
he's
good.
Getting makeup. He's an actor, and he's getting makeup put on him while he's squatting down next to the building because there's nowhere else for him to go. And he's just the poor guy. Good. The poor guy is just dying from the inside. And
it's a blood soaked. I don't know if you ever saw the play or the movie Noises Off.
No, but I think that was mentioned. Yeah, that was mentioned in the trivia that like that there was some influence of that.
It's a fantastic play. I think I've seen the movie. I weirdly saw that play like when I was in high school. I went up to New York and got to see Peter Gallagher do the Broadway revival of it.
Oh wow!
Which I was like, stoked, because I knew him from like While You Were Sleeping, and then he ended up being in the OC. So I was like, I gotta see that guy live.
Nice.
But no, it's a similar kind of play where or story where they're like, there's all this stuff happening in the background as they're trying to put on this play. And I think the first scene is that you see like the actual play and it feels weird. And then you keep resetting and what's going on. And it's fantastic. But it's just this idea. This is why I wanted to show you this movie, because I especially since you resonated so much with Fish Story. I'm like, I need to kind of find more life-affirming Japanese genre films. Apparently. I've got maybe one more up my sleeve, and I'm not even sure that's an affirming one. But when you asked about sorry.
No, go ahead.
When you were asking about what I wanted to do, because I mean, I know we've talked about several different movies, and my biggest problem is just scheduling, because I love chatting with you. I love going on the show. But I was trying to find like the right follow up. For whatever reason, I was like getting into my head. I'm like, well, I did Fish Story last time. That's like one of the best movies ever made. So I got to follow up with something. and this is what I came up with, because I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is the 1-2 punch. Like these two movies together. Like if you get a group of people who have never seen either film, and are at least, amenable to watching subtitled Japanese films.
Yeah.
Like these are two of the best movies you're going to ever watch.
It really is. And you just, if you haven't seen it before, all you got to do is get through that first 37 minutes of, hey, okay. And look, I've watched so many movies that are one cut of the Dead's first 37 minutes.
Oh yeah, there are so many zombie movies that are that movie without the self-awareness. and
even there, like that's a fun little movie. And there's the silly things like when she's hiding and the zombie walks into the room. And one of my notes was like, how did that zombie not see her right in front of her? Why is the zombie not attacking the cameraman? Like all this kind of stuff that's going on, especially when you learn like the camera is, now diegetically part of the movie. Like all these things. And then to find all the answers to all that, like the zombie that walks into the room where she's hiding was just there to give her a cue card of like, pick up an axe when you go outside. Like, it's just so good. So good.
And there's an axe. How nice! Like trying to improvise and like make, and it's like a bad line, but you're like, okay, now I get it. This is hilarious.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate stuff like this so much more, because the care went into thinking about how to structure and how to write this movie about making a movie. And this is meta done really well and really interestingly, instead of, you mentioned kind of laziness, and it's very easy to get lazy with stuff like this. Very easy.
It is. I mean, because so many things are like, oh, we're aware that this is a movie. We're breaking the fourth wall. And it's like, just because you break the fourth wall or acknowledge the fourth wall exists does not mean you're doing anything of merit. And it kind of hurts movies like this in a way, because people sort of start to get used to that and not appreciate it for, honestly, the great tool that it can be. And it's a bummer. And this is a movie that utilizes that fourth wall so well.
It would have been very easy for this movie to not stick the landing as well. Like, but they did. They 10 out of 10 stuck the landing on this. And I'm so glad. Like, that was my last line, my last note while watching it was they nailed this movie all the way through. And
I was so happy to get the message from you where you're like, you son of a bitch. I was like, yes, this is the reaction I wanted. This is 100% why I wanted you to watch this movie. Because you reacted to the Fish Story the way you did, I was like, yeah. You're going to appreciate this. Yeah,
you definitely, you are. Well, I mean, in Redline, I liked, like, it's interesting. The last 3 movies I've had you on for, Redline I liked, and I thought it was really interesting. But then you hit me.
Did I do Redline with you, or did Drew?
I think maybe. Oh, that might have been just Drew, but I think you mentioned it, or maybe it was both of you.
I told him to tell you to do that one, so I mean, I'll claim that one too.
But either way, like, I liked that, but then Fish Story was just a revelation. It was something completely unexpected, and this went the same way, because at about 30 minutes in, so not quite to where the credits started rolling, but at that point, I'm like, I don't know if this one's, like, I'm going to get through it, and it's okay, but I'm waiting for it to get to that level, because I kept hearing good things about it.
The movie makes you think that is what makes it land better. Like it is such a great, that's what I call it, a magic trick, because it's a magic trick. It is not actively trying to trick you as a ha-ha. It's no. This is the illusion, and isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
It's going to Disney World. You know that you're not being attacked by Kylo Ren in Rise of the Resistance, but oh boy, is this not a wonderful illusion,
Absolutely. And just the love letter to filmmaking, and the heart at the base of it too. That's the thing, I think, more than anything that surprised me the most was the heart that's in this movie, of the filmmakers, of the familial stuff with the characters, because you know that family, those three, are so much closer now than they were because of the experience of making this movie was for Higurashi and Mao and now. Like, just that whole thing coming together and the camaraderie, like you said, it's the I hated you while we were making this, now let's go get a beer. Like,
Right.
it's just so good. And again, showing how hard it is to make anything. And not only that, but to actually be low budget while you're doing it too. This isn't a $40 million
Yeah, this
project trying to show that they're making, like, I watched X, and X is great. But X has a lot of budget and filmmaking behind it for
mhm.
showing low budget filmmaking, which it works. But to be that
Yeah.
low budget thing and doing that at the same time, there's something, I don't know, extra about that to me.
I really wanted Maxine to be like this in a sense, and it just isn't. I love Ty West as a filmmaker. I am lukewarm on the X Pearl trilogy. I know some people really love those movies. I think they're exceptionally well made. I think Mia Goth is excellent in them. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. We're like, with X, I mean, X is A24's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's be real.
You're not wrong.
But even that movie's like, it's not they're making a porn, but the movie's not about making a
that's
porn.
true.
And it's not about the art of filmmaking, and it's not about the art of erotica or anything like that. It's the device. It's not the movie.
Yeah, I think Ed Wood is probably the better comparison for something like this, because that really is about that. It's not the same movie at all.
I adore that movie, but it isn't, and it is.
Yeah,
because you see these moments happen. You see, all right, Bela Lugosi is going to jump in the freezing cold water, wrap a tentacle around himself, and say, "Let's shoot this fucker." Like it has the same energy. The people involved in Ed Wood would have loved One Cut for the Dead.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. Again, it's you bringing it back to what you had said earlier. It's, if you've done this type of thing, if you've been in community theater, if you have been in theater of any kind, independent film, independent music scene, any kind of creative endeavor at all, it doesn't even independent comics, you've gone through something similar to this, where whatever it is you're doing is just utter chaos and nothing is working. Everything is on fire, and somehow you come out the other end of it. And if for the people that aren't, think of like Eastman and Laird making the comic in their house, borrowing money from their parents to make Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But if you didn't know that story, you're just like, these guys made they drew a comic, printed a few hundred copies of it or whatever, sold it, and the rest is history. But you learn the backstory behind it, and there's so much more to it. And
there's so much more to it.
This movie captured.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because I think of so one of my best friends in the world that isn't Drew. We've done 2 different local music zines together in the past, and while we were doing them, like, we hated each other so much, so many fights, and then as soon as something comes out, we are getting sushi, we're doing whatever, and we lived together for like 7 years after the fact. But it's one of those things where it's like, when you were in the trenches of creativity, sometimes you hear about all these great relationships, and I mean those also exist, but sometimes some of those combustible ones bring a lot of great material too. And you need someone who's always pushing for perfection. You need someone who's always pushing for against it and be like, no, I want to do this right, as opposed to do this on time. And everyone has different opinions and ideas, and it's a mess, and it's a beautiful mess. And I mean, there's no better representation of a beautiful mess happening than this movie right here.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And this was a great choice. I'm so glad that you showed me this. I'm going to be showing this to people now. I'm going to be spreading the good word. This one's easier to find because it is on Shudder than Fish Story. I do want to get a Blu-ray of Fish Story though, because I would like to have that. I want that movie to start getting more recognition so it can hit a streaming service and get even more people to see
Yeah,
it.
it's one of those things where
Probably won't,
like
but
certain creators start like signal boosting that one, and like more people. That's how I found it. Is
Mhm.
because someone that I read was like talking about this movie. I'm like, this movie sounds amazing, and discovered it and was like, I think I bought a copy from a library. Like my first DVD copy of it was like from a library somewhere
Nice.
in its original like 2009 DVD form. And Third Window, God bless their souls, like put this out like last year, and it is technically region free, even though it says region B, and will play in your PlayStation, your Xbox, your regular DVD Blu-ray player. It's one of the best movies of all time. I will probably like front this movie every time I come on this the podcast.
I
Be
mean,
honest, because I
when I tell people about this show, that movie comes up. When I tell them what the show is and how it came about, I'm like,
makes me so
I show
happy.
people a movie for the first time, or they bring something to me. And one of my favorite things is discovering something new, and Fish Story inevitably comes up, and they're like, Fish Story. And I say, yeah, it's a Japanese movie about a punk band in the 70s writes a song that 30 years later saves the world from a meteor. And I'm like, that's exactly what happens in the movie, but it's also not anything to do with the movie.
Right.
Just watch it. You'll trust me. Like that's the only way I can describe it. Because that is what the movie is, but it that is one. And now this is going to be one where I'm like, you like horror movies, you like zombie movies, let's check this out, right? Because this is that kind of a movie. So
yeah, and especially because I remember being kind of reticent because I mean I'm not a big zombie guy. I mean I love your standards. I like a good zombie movie, but like there are people who go see every single zombie movie, every single zombie TV show, and I'm more of a vampire guy over the zombies and stuff like that.
Fair enough.
But this is, but you don't want to tell people, well, it's not really a zombie movie, because you want people to go in expecting to see a low budget horror film.
Yeah,
because that's the correct mindset to come in, and you come out of it being like, oh man, I just experienced life.
Yeah. It's that there's layers to this that I wasn't expecting, and just crushed it for me. So thank you so much for suggesting this one and getting me to watch it.
I'm happy to do it.
Look, you've got
I'm glad of the ones that I've personally suggested that they've been good, because I think the only one that I hadn't seen was Big Lebowski when I came on and did that one.
Yep. That's right.
Which I had a great time with. I went on a whole I want to watch a bunch of kind of Shane Black in LA type of movies, like your Nice Guys, your Kiss Kiss Bang Bangs, like the kind of winding. Under the Silver Lake is a really good one, honestly. The finish is okay, but the journey is fantastic. But yeah, I'm and if I'm just going to come in and promote more Asian movies, I'll do it. I got plenty.
Keep coming, because you're doing great so far, and I'm going to stop questioning the movies that you suggest.
I will say this: I don't have many more that are on the level of these. I've got one that I think you will really like if you haven't seen, that I would love to come back and do in the near future. I can already. You know what? I'll call my shot already.
Okay.
And the next movie that I want you to watch is because I know you like Tarantino, and I know you like the sort of like, here's 5 stories that all kind of come together as one thing. It's called Survive Style 5+.
Okay. I've not heard that one.
And includes one non-Japanese actor in Vinnie Jones.
Oh, all right.
I haven't seen this movie in about 10 years, but I remember it being very, very fun and kind of like, I don't know, really weird. It's a very weird movie, but it's got some stuff. Also, I want to know if the people who made Birdman saw this movie. But this movie is wild. This movie is very fun. It's not as life affirming, if I recall correctly, but it's more like cool. Like, this is a movie Tarantino probably saw and thought was pretty neat. But I want to come on and do that next.
All right, I'm down for that. We will figure out how to do that because I love having you on. You and Drew are a couple of
I
my
love being
favorite
here.
people, and I love having you
The
guys
feeling is
on.
absolutely mutual.
Now you do a show with Drew, who, by the way, I did get to see at DragonCon and give him his
In
shirt.
person.
I gave him his Zardoz shirt, so
That's awesome.
he's got to wear that at some point. But you guys do a show I've talked about a few
Mhm.
times, and I've been on a couple of times. But remind people.
Yep. So we do The More You Nerd. It used to be, I mean, it still is about expanding your nerd horizons. We used to take in listener supported challenges. Now we do our own thing because after 10 years, the challenges were starting to dry up a little bit. And we also kind of wanted to redo how we did the show.
Sure.
So now we kind of try to do themes. And like currently, we're doing a theme called Notice Me Sentai, where we are going through, I think about 20 different Super Sentai shows over the course of 6 weeks.
Oh wow.
And I'm a massive Super Sentai Power Rangers fan. I love tokusatsu stuff in general. And I've gotten Drew into it because he's got super into Kamen Rider when we
Okay.
did that.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of different stuff. We've done gosh, I lose track of everything that we've done. We did a series on John Candy last Christmas. We had a Candy Christmas.
Yep. Those were fun. I liked listening to those.
October's coming up. We typically do a trunk or treat thing because I think horror for kids is a very valuable thing. We often have the person who runs Horror for Kids on there at least once a year. And yeah, we just do nerdy stuff. Go in with an open mind and try to get people into more cool stuff. I also do a show with former More Nerd co-host Patrick called Kaiju versus History, where we go through every single kaiju movie ever made in chronological order. We are now in the 2010s.
Oh boy.
So we don't have too long left on our life lease, although there's a bunch of stuff coming out. And then Drew, Patrick, and I, and all of our friends do a show called Cosmic Crit, where we do a live, well, not live, but a actual play of the RPG Starfinder. We have a Discord, which Travis is a part of. We have a More Nerd channel and a Kaiju versus History channel so that you can come and talk to us in real time.
Yeah, definitely check out The More You Nerd. I think it's moreyounerd.com, and you can find links to all that stuff there. It's a great show. You guys are great, and I love having you on. It's been fun when you've had me on. We talked, I think we did Tron a while back for like legacy type stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah, because I think Drew had never seen either of those movies initially.
So
wild to me.
I do. There's times where you guys will get into some of like the Sentai, Super Sentai stuff that I didn't watch a lot of, and so I do kind of get that college freshman. Well, I get that college freshman who wandered into the wrong, the wrong lecture type of thing. But
did you follow us on our fast journey?
A little bit, and I'm going to be doing my own journey of that soon. So, in fact, I was on for the first one. I talked to you guys about the first.
You
movie.
were. Yeah, we were. I think it's the last time we had you on, which we keep talking about having you back. We talk about having you back all the time. So last summer, I somehow coerced Drew into the Furious Summer, where we did every single to-date entry of the Fast and the Furious franchise because. And honestly, if I could have had you on every week, it would have been fantastic for us because other than the first one, I had never seen any of them.
Yeah, I've only ever seen the first one. Still.
I had a great time with that weird, stupid franchise because it is very stupid and very weird.
And that's what I love about your show is even if it's a thing that I'm not well versed in, you guys dive into it and you have so much passion behind it. And that's one of the things that I love, even if it's something that doesn't work for you, you don't like, you guys have a very positive spin on things. And I appreciate that.
That's kind of always been our mission statement from the very beginning when Drew and Mike started this show, was to approach things like, especially when it came from doing listener supported challenges, because we used to have 3 rules, had to be something we could do in a week. Cheap is good, free is better. But most importantly, and our biggest rule was whenever someone submits something, tell us why you love it. because we wanted to experience things from someone who's an actual fan, not just like, hey, watch the new, Doctor Who episode. Okay, great. But like, why? I mean, I love Doctor Who, and I could write about why I love Doctor Who, but tell me why you loved. Why should we do this? And it wasn't confrontational. It was just like, why would you share this? And I have discovered so many awesome things doing this show over the last 12 years now, and I mean, it's that kind of attitude, I think, has deeply enriched my life. I've found so many cool things. My wallet hates it because I've bought so many things as a result.
Same.
But I've also discovered stuff that like I thought I would hate. Like we did this series called like Franchise Follies about having a very successful first film and then a second film that just killed the franchise, or a sequel that killed the franchise. And I developed the very controversial opinion that Caddyshack 2 is better than the first one.
I mean, look, you're a crazy person for that, but that's okay. That's what we love.
That reaction. All right, give me this. The Kenny Loggins song is way better. Nobody's Fool was a much better theme song.
I want to disagree. But
you can't.
I don't think I can.
Awesome.
I don't think I can. No. But, and I'm with you. Like, I get so much more enrichment out of my life by just having that kind of an attitude, right? Of like, let's check this thing out. Let's try it. You can find negativity wherever you want to go. It's easy to find. It's easy to be negative.
10 seconds.
But I love that you and Drew bring such a good positive energy to everything. And, anytime you want me back on, I'll be on. And we'll have you back on here. We'll talk about what the movie
Survive
was.
Style 5+.
There it is. It's a very Japanese title too. I love that.
It is. It was we were interviewing comic book writer Alex DeCampi, and she's done a bunch of stuff, but she did the Archie versus Predator miniseries. Okay. And she was like, "Have you guys ever seen this movie?" Because we always, when we used to do interviews, we'd always be like, "Hey, if you ever want to come on and actually challenge to do something," and most people are like, "Oh yeah," and never do that. And she was like, "All right, fuckers, you're gonna watch this Japanese movie," and I was just like, "All right." And this movie was wild, and we had a really, really good time talking to her about it. But yeah, I'm always down to talk about movies. We love having you on. Let me see what we're gonna do for Trunk or Treat and see if there's anything new, because we are kind of struggling to find some stuff this year. So I might do something different. So if you haven't seen some of the franchise stuff, because Drew was recently, I know we're getting into like regular chit chat. I don't know if your listeners care about that or not, but Drew was recently got into the Friday the 13th series. Mm-hmm. He'd never seen them before, and I was like, "Well, did you tell Travis? Because like you should be talking to him about this. That's his whole deal." Yeah, but I know he hasn't watched a lot of horror franchise sequels, which I think I kind of want to make him watch some for Halloween this year, because like there's listening to him and his wife talk about listening to him and his wife go through the Friday the 13th series was wild, because I mean, one, they're so far removed from growing up watching those movies, but like, all franchise horror fans, everyone has their weird love for one. Mm-hmm. There's always one movie that like they go to bat for, and it's so funny because we have a very good mutual friend who absolutely hates their favorite one.
Of course, there's always
for whatever reason they go to bat for part 2. They love part 2, and I was just like, all right, well that's interesting. And they did love part 6, so I was like, all right, well you guys are fine, because they were poo-pooing a lot of movies, and then part 6 comes out and they're like, this movie was great.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, definitely check out The More You Nerd. Check out themoreyounerd.com. If you like this show, I do record live most Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can check it out, twitch.tv/tvstravis, youtube.com. There's a live stream there too. And you can always go to tvstravis.com. You can find links for my merch store there. You can find links for everything that I do, including the Patreon for this show, which helps me to do things like going to DragonCon and doing the show live there and meeting a bunch of great people. And I'm planning on doing that again next year. So if you want to help make that happen,
we're gonna try to get there next year.
Yeah, I hope that you can. And then next week, I've got good friend of the show, Amy Frost, is coming back. Tentatively, right now, we're talking about. She wants me to watch Chocolat because I've never seen that one. And
really,
yeah, and it fits in a little bit with a project she's got going on as well. Not directly, but it's in the same kind of vein. The movie, like the story in that movie, kind of works with it. So that's going to be great. I love having Amy on. And so she's coming back next week. And then after that, I've got my good friends Phil and his son Austin are going to come on. We're going to make Austin watch Brotherhood of the Wolf for the first time. So he's never seen that, and I can't wait. Phil and I both love the movie, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. But Myles, thank you so much for being here this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being on your show. I love having you on ours. Just love talking to you in general. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Some of my favorite exchanges over movies or television are with you in various either Discords or wherever, because it's always a good conversation. Even if we don't agree on what we think of a thing, we can have the right kind of conversation that's actually constructive. And I appreciate that.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. I love chatting with you as well. And, come find us and talk nerdy with us.
Absolutely. So until next week, until Amy Frost is here, just remember to enjoy your movies and be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen. It was really hard to find something to put at the end.